course.
That is the cool. See, but here's the thing. So I watched this movie when I was 12. Went to the swimming pool and thought to myself, I absolutely have a shot with one of these lifeguards. So there is some truth to like you watch a movie and then you're influenced to go do something. Uh-huh. And so I'm just saying, be careful. Welcome to another episode of Is This for Kids? I am Jonathan Bearded Blevins.
I am Katie, Mrs. Ruby.
And today we're going to talk about a classic. I was going to say the year. Don't say it. Don't look it up. Don't look at your computer. Sandlot. An absolute classic, especially for 12-year-old kids who were 12 in like 19-something. What year did that movie come out? Do you know?
1993.
Okay. My next question for you, Ruby.
Yeah.
Is that do you think that 1993 was the greatest year in the history of films?
In the history of films?
The greatest movies released in 1993. Are you ready for some?
It was really like the early 90s was a great time for movies.
This is all 1993.
Okay.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yep.
The Visitors.
I don't know what that is.
The Three Musketeers. The Beverly Hillbillies. Cool Runnings. For Love or Money. Dazed and Confused. What? Are you serious about Dazed and Confused?
I've never seen Dazed and Confused, and I'm not like I've never done any drugs, so.
So I Married an Axe Murderer.
That was all right.
Coneheads.
All right.
Robin Hood Men in Tights. Yes. Hocus Pocus.
Ah.
I know. Weekend at the Bernie's 2. Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the Year.
You love that one,
I
right?
do. I love Rookie of the Year.
Dennis the Menace.
I think that was okay.
That was. I mean, this.
I think
how
I was
many?
8 that year, so that would have been a
Much
big deal
Ado About Nothing.
Kenneth Branagh.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. Sandlot, of course, we're talking about today. I'm gonna keep going for a second because this gets insane.
Yeah.
Groundhog Day. Leprechaun. Homeward Bound.
I love Homeward Bound. It's
Shadow.
So good. Who did the voice of Shadow? Because I know Chance was Michael J.
amazing.
Fox, and then Sassy was Sally Field, but I don't know who was Shadow.
Ernest Rides Again. I never liked Ernest. I thought he was a little weird, but not as weird as Pee Wee Herman.
My husband loves Ernest.
I got weird Pee Wee Herman vibes before the movie theater incident.
What year was that? I feel like the Pee Wee Herman incident, you would have been young.
My dad remembers like there was a band. I think it was Green Day.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to be wrong about this, but I think it was Green Day that accidentally or on purpose dumped. They were like on a boat in Chicago, or their tour bus just dumped a bunch of poop on like a bunch of people on like a tour boat in Chicago.
That makes sense because around that time they released an album called Dookie.
Well, that's funny actually. There's just so many movies in the 90s, and those are just mostly comedies.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and say that 1993.
It was a good year. I mean,
Was
94 was when
Pre-Hysteria.
Forrest
Do you
Gump
remember
came out.
that?
No.
Pre-Hysteria with the kid who had a bunch of dinosaur friends.
No, I definitely don't even know what that is.
Oh man, yeah, they just don't make movies like that anymore.
We should just. Well, I mean, to be fair, there was some really terrible things going on in Hollywood at that time. They're putting out great movies, but really just screwing over actors left and right. So
yeah. Also, actors made a lot of movies back then.
they did.
Like there was one guy. Who was the guy in Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Matthew Broderick.
Yeah, Matthew Broderick was just in like 3 films every single year.
I've seen Matthew Broderick in person. I saw him in 2003 in The Producers on Broadway.
Did you beat him in poker?
No, that was the guy that was Hawkeye. I beat Hawkeye in poker.
Oh, Hawkeye. He's doing well now.
I've heard good things. Hey, Jeremy Renner, remember that one time I beat you in poker in a house in Tucson, Arizona? Call me. How have you been?
Call me. What?
I told you I do this. I just convince famous people that we're already friends.
Oh my gosh.
That's how you and I became friends.
You do.
Yeah.
All right, so Sandlot. We're talking about Sandlot today. Now, I'm going to give some context to why we're choosing Sandlot because it makes sense. So the 2 episodes that are together this week are Sandlot and Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
Yep.
Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. We're having a whole episode on. Is about female puberty.
Yeah, it's a coming of age story for girls.
Yes. And so we're like, what's a coming of age story for guys?
Sandlot.
Even though it's like it's not a very good one for that reason, but it makes sense. So we're doing Sandlot. Do you remember the first time you saw Sandlot?
I don't remember the first time I saw it. It might have been the first time I saw it. I remember we checked it out from Blockbuster Video. This was not one that I saw. I know. I didn't see this one in the theaters. I saw it at my house on Koenig Street, which no longer exists. It was leveled to make way for a new elementary school.
So it wasn't a legend then? Because legends never die.
Right. Legends never die.
Okay, I'll stop with the movie quotes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I watched it at my house.
Okay, so I saw it when I was like, it came out in 93, which I was 6. I didn't watch it until I was like 12. And by the time that I was 12, it was already outdated.
Really?
But yes, it was already like, the nostalgia piece of it was already not there.
For you, what do you mean?
When I was 12. So yeah, Babe Ruth, like, no one cared.
60s
no one cared.
movie.
No one cared who Babe Ruth was when I was 12. I'm just saying.
That's because when you were 12, it was when like the Sammy Sosa
exactly the
happening.
greatest time in baseball.
The roided out nonsense.
Yes. If you want to make baseball
Corked
fun
bats
again,
and
let
roids.
them get roided up. 100%. It was way more fun than it ever will be. 100%. And so
not the
you're
pitch
exactly
clock that's the
right
problem.
though. My dad was trying to tell me about why Babe Ruth was so awesome, and I was like, did he hit as many home runs as Sammy Sosa? Oh well, then he can't be that good.
He married Marilyn Monroe despite being incredibly unattractive. Did he marry her? Date her? That was Mickey. Dang it! It was somebody.
That's Joe DiMaggio.
Ah, crap.
Yeah, Ruby.
He got ladies even though he wasn't handsome.
If you didn't finish that with ease, that would have been very weird. Like what?
I mean, probably that too.
You're killing me, Smalls.
But
So as a 12-year-old, I remember watching it, and because my dad, this was one of those movies where like my dad was just waiting for me to be old enough to watch, and my mom, of course, was protective, so
Your
I
parents
had to wait until I was like 10, 11, 12. I don't know how
great
old I was.
people.
I was 10, 11, or 12. And I just remember like my dad just like looking at me every time to see if I was going to laugh, and I was just like, it's just okay. It's just okay.
That's
Yeah, Sandlot's not that good. What are your thoughts?
Sandlot is amazing. I don't know if I was just
What's amazing about it?
okay. So I think that a lot of us 90s kids grew up with this weird nostalgia for a time we never lived in situation. So movies like The Sandlot, where like everybody's going outside and playing, really resonate with people my age. I'm an elder millennial, so I remember going outside to play.
Me too.
I did not grow up with the internet.
Me neither.
I had one gaming system and my brother was always on it. So if anybody was on it. So going outside to play, like we pretend that this was our childhood even though it wasn't.
But it was my childhood. That's why I don't like the movie.
What
Because
do you
it was
mean?
my childhood.
You were not a child in the 60s.
No, but I played outside. It's all I ever did.
Yeah.
I lived in a cul-de-sac with like a dozen different people who were all had kids my age.
Okay.
And so we were outside all day, every single day. And so this movie I didn't relate to at all because that's not how we played. That wasn't what we did. We didn't play baseball. We played hockey or football or basketball.
Okay.
You know, and like we didn't like fake die to get CPR from lifeguards. We manned up and we got consent before we kissed.
Sure. Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's
like
fair.
a real man.
Yeah. You said, "Excuse me, miss, I would like to plant one right here despite the fact that I'm several years younger than you."
Yes.
Yeah, all right. That's good.
Thoughts?
I like it. There is a lot has been made online about the Wendy Peppercorn kiss situation, but the fact that she grabs him by the ear and throws him out of the pool is hilarious.
Right.
And funny and definitely what he deserved. I don't know. I just really like the idea that kids can go have adventures. For me, this is exactly like Goonies, and you hated Goonies too. So like,
but I think you just made me realize why I hated Goonies. I hated Goonies because that isn't how I played.
okay,
like,
but that's
I was
like
outside.
the ideal version of playing, where the world is safe, where kids can collect soda bottles to get a baseball, where they can build stuff with their erector sets. Like this is ideal childhood, and even though none of us actually lived it that way, it's cool that they get to go out and like have a sleepover in the tree house. And we have not told them what this movie's about. I just realized.
Well, because we assume during these movies that you've seen it or are familiar with it. So go ahead and let them know what Sandlot is.
Yeah, just in case you haven't seen it, we're going back just a step here. The Sandlot is the story of a boy, Smalls is what they call him the entire time. That's the last time I can't remember his first name.
Biggie Smalls.
It's not Biggie Smalls.
I know,
would have remembered
that. Was a joke about Notorious B.I.G.
Anyway, great. Which is also cool around that time and period.
Yes.
Yes.
I just recently met the DOC.
The Department of Corrections?
The doc. Not Dr.
Holiday?
Dre, but okay. Do you know the song Forgot About Dre?
Yeah. That's an Eminem song.
Right. What is it? Forgot About Dre? Yeah. Who do you think brought you the OGs, Eazy-E's, Ice Cubes, and DOCs? And the group that said the police. The DOCs?
Uh-huh.
I just was in a suite with him at a Dallas Cowboys Detroit Lions game. He is awesome.
He seems great.
He is so cool.
Did you?
He
call
was
him,
around. He was like
Mr.
friends with all
DOC?
those guys.
Yeah.
Okay, I digress. I'm sorry. The 90s were awesome.
It's important. Anyway, yada yada. Smalls moves to a town, doesn't know anybody. His mom tells him to go outside and play, stop being such a nerd inside with his erector sets. And so he goes outside, meets his neighbor kid, Benny the Jet Rodriguez, who takes him to play baseball.
Benny! Baseball, sorry.
Baseball. Takes him outside to play baseball in a big dirt field adjacent to a house that they have this whole lore about the house, that it's run by a guy who eats children and it's got a junkyard dog and like the dog is mean because the guy made him mean, and so they are scared of this one part of the fence, and in an attempt to keep the game going, one day he swipes a ball from his stepdad that was signed by Babe Ruth. And because he's a big nerd, he doesn't know who Babe Ruth is, so he doesn't realize the value of the ball that gets belted into the yard with the dog. And the whole story is about getting the ball back.
Yeah.
There you go. So getting the, like, just to me,
but you just jump the fence. You just man up and get it and go.
You go ring the doorbell like a normal person. You go ask the guy, like, hey, can I get them? No.
That's what they thought.
That's what they thought, but like, that's insane. Like, they should have had some girlfriends who would have been like, he's not gonna kill you. Bring two of you.
See, that's
run in opposite directions.
That's
like,
a good point. They should have done that.
Yeah, but that would have been a much shorter movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so anyway. It's an absolute classic. People love it. It is funny. Like, I think it's a funny movie. It's fine. It's not on my must-watch list for my kids.
My kids loved this movie. We rewatched it together. And they had a great time. They thought it was super fun. Then they went outside and played baseball for like 4 hours.
That is the cool. See, but here's the thing. So I watched this movie when I was 12. Went to the swimming pool and thought to myself, I absolutely have a shot with one of these lifeguards. So there is some truth to, like, you watch a movie and then you're influenced to go do something. And so I'm just saying, be careful.
Sure.
I think it's fine. This is one of those movies where, like, I would let my 8-year-old watch it right now, but Jody would be like, oh, not every single girl hates sports. And that's what they're portrayed as in this movie. Like,
no, they're not. There's just almost no girls.
Yeah, but the ones who are there are just like, oh, I don't have time for any of the stuff that guys are into. It's like, listen.
No.
There's stereotypes.
Wendy Peppercorn is the only girl, and that's really in this movie. And there's a specific line where he says, "My mom, a grown-up girl, knew who Babe Ruth was."
But right, the stereotype though.
But only from boys' perspective. Like, little boys
Agreed.
think that about girls, but there's no little girls who are behaving that way in
this
the
is
movie.
why I'm saying I don't think I would care,
Yeah.
but I do think that Jody would care.
Yeah. I think that it's a great movie. I think it's great for little boys and little girls, little kids, to see people outside playing, coming up with ways of solving a problem, storytelling, those kinds of things. But from a parental perspective, there is one particular scene, aside from the kissing the lifeguard without consent, which isn't even kissing. She gives him mouth to mouth and he grabs her head. Anyway, but that is the carnival scene where they get into a little bit of chewing tobacco.
Yeah, but see, okay, that's what you're worried about?
Well, I think that's what parents would care about.
They get sick.
They do. To the tune of tequila.
When my mom was like, John, if I ever catch you smoking cigarettes, I will make you smoke a pack in front of me until you puke in the toilet. That's what my mom said to me when I was growing up.
Nice.
And it worked.
Good parenting.
I was like, I'm not going to do it.
Mrs. Blevins for the win.
Don't you think?
Every time. And
so that's kind of the lesson you learn there. Don't chew tobacco. They all get sick.
Yeah, it's one of those things that people would point out and be like, hey, there's chewing tobacco with children in this movie. You're like, yeah, but not everything that you see in a movie is an endorsement of that thing.
Right.
They clearly are ill and never chew tobacco again, so.
I'm surprised that I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that you brought up chewing tobacco, even though they get sick, instead of the language, which is pretty bad for a bunch of little kids to be using the language that they use.
You know me, I don't care about the language.
You should. Well, you should if you only had a 6-year-old.
What?
If you only had a 6-year-old, you had one 6-year-old boy, and you're like, I'm gonna watch, because you probably would let your 6-year-old watch it now with all the other ones.
For sure.
Like, would you let your 6-year-old be one of the first movies your 6-year-old sees, like with language like hell damn a-hole son of a. I mean, like that's not nothing.
It's not nothing, but these are 12-year-old boys, and that is how they talk when they go play sports by themselves.
I didn't. I really didn't.
Really?
I did not. I did not start swearing until I was like 15 or 16. Dead serious.
You know how I know that my son is swearing more around me than he is willing to admit to? Or like not around me. Like when he goes to play basketball at the Y, I know he's swearing with his buddies. Because he comes home and then starts saying, oh my God. We're not allowed to say that in my house, but like it has now become part of his thing that he can't stop himself. I'm like, I know you're out swearing when I'm not. Just so we're on the same page.
Listen here, Billy.
You're not getting anything over on me, okay? I know you're doing this. I can't stop it.
Yeah.
But
and it's not a huge deal. I don't think it's a huge deal for 12, 13, 14. Like, whatever. Deal with it.
You need to have a...
But 6, 7, like, my boys, I know you think this is crazy. My 8 and 7-year-old do not know 90% of those words. They've never heard them.
That is insane to me.
They don't, because like we hang out. All of our friends have similar parenting tactics to us.
Yeah.
Like my wife will maybe the most I've ever heard is from my wife. I have never sworn in front of my kids one time, literally ever. Not hard. It's not a hard thing for me to not do. And same with the friends we hang out with. And all of our kids are friends with kids their own age. Like there's no group where they hang out with someone who's like 10, 11, or 12. And if they are, they're little girls and they're angels. Yeah. So it was just, and we have a lot of friends. It's not like we hang out with like 4 people. It's a ton of people.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people. And you wouldn't believe the amount of people.
There's so many people. We have a lot of friends that come over, but they come over to watch football, and one of them's an Eagles fan. And you know how Eagles fans are.
Yeah, so Jody would like tell them to not swear. And like when we go, like my brothers for sure would like about to be swearing. And Jody will look at them and be like, hey.
We had friends over for the week 18 Lions Vikings game, and I have a tendency when somebody needs to be tackled, when the Vikings have the ball, I'm like, kill him, like that's always what I yell. And this poor 8-year-old girl, she's like, Mrs. Katie's a little scary.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
I was like, I'm so sorry, Sylvia, I love you.
That's actually amazing.
I didn't really mean to kill him. Yeah, not actual death.
And again, I want to clarify, I kind of like curse like a sailor, but just not in front of my kids. Yeah. Yeah, it's like when they're old enough.
It's so funny. Go ahead.
We were listening to Kenny Loggins. That's why
that sound was so loud.
That's what we do behind the scenes. You can check that out at Patreon, by the way. So before we get to Patreon, Sandlot, I think the age, whether or not Sandlot's for kids, I would say like 9, 10, 11, depending on like how comfortable you are with language.
Yeah, I would say 6 and up. By the time your kid has made it to 1st grade, they've probably heard those words. Unless your kid is unless you're very sensitive to language and they've not heard them, then be aware that there's language. But if your kid is in public school or private school, a corporate school is what I mean, some sort of school where there's other children around, by 1st grade they've heard those words. So there you
go. I was gonna make a joke and I was like, I'm not gonna make the joke. I'm not gonna
stop it. I'm sorry right now. You know.
But it is funny.
It is. It's a great movie.
Speaking of Patreon.
We have a Patreon.
We do have a Patreon.
You go to patreon.com/isthisforkids, and then you can subscribe, join. You can patronize. You can patronus.
All the things.
Expecto Patronum.
Petroleum.
And jelly, which is Vaseline.
You can give us any feedback you want on episodes in our Discord, which is available on Patreon as well.
Yeah, there's lots of great bonus content in there. There's some conversation guides, but the Discord is fantastic. There's bonus episodes.
Yep.
Yeah, so check it out, patreon.com/isthisforkids. And, there is just so much media out there for us to navigate as parents.
I'm Jonathan Bearded Blevins.
I'm Katie, Mrs. Ruby. Let us help you decide.
Is this for kids?